What's up everybody, how's it going? It's Burke, aka Dan's Great here, and welcome to this hangout in which I will be giving you guys a lot of updates because they have been building up for some time. So let me get straight into it and begin with the Final Fantasy 24/7 stream on the channel and some updates that will be coming for that. Of course, hopefully many of you guys have been seeing Final Fantasy 16 on the channel over the summer / early autumn, and now it is finally time for 16 to make its official and permanent appearance on the 24/7 stream. So behind the scenes, we have been working on this, getting Final Fantasy 16 prepped and placed inside the system so that we can start sharing that one as well on the stream for everybody. Now, alongside Final Fantasy 16, another game that has been requested quite a lot is Crisis Core Reunion. And so I've been thinking about this one for quite some time, and thanks to the new randomizer format, which I think is going to work a lot better for adding in games like Crisis Core, I have decided to place that in alongside Final Fantasy 16. So from this point forward, once we make the update and the randomizer gets the new games added to its pool, we will also be seeing Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core Reunion on the stream. Now, admittedly, because it is more of a spin-off title, it's not going to have as high priority as the mainline games, but I did want to put it in there. And this randomizer system is great for that because you can place these games in and make them have rarer appearances where they can feature, but they won't sort of bloat things too much or get in the way of the more mainline titles, which we still prefer to focus on overall for the stream. So definitely look out for that one. I have also done it in a way where basically I will show the main story and the missions that I did alongside while I was doing the main story. Then there is a big chunk of missions that I did once I completed it and I saw the credits roll, but that's not going to be part of it because they're very repetitive and they're just going to bloat out the playlist. So you will get the Final Fantasy Crisis Core Reunion story on the stream, but just not the absolute entire full playlist. So that's what we have for you in terms of the stream. 16 will be added, and the first playthrough of 16 on the 24/7 stream will be like a manually inserted one so that we can get it going, have its first appearance, and then it will join the randomizer pool, and we will see where it reappears in the future. In terms of how the randomizer is going, behind the scenes, we're all very happy with it. I'm personally very happy with it, and the mod team in general is also very happy with it. As with any kind of system to run a stream like this, it's never going to have a universal acceptance or praise. In general, I think people are happy with it. We've definitely seen more people say they like the randomizer in comparison to people saying they don't and they wish it would change or it would go back or there was something different. So for now, we're going to stick with it, especially logistically behind the scenes. It really does help us to have this more kind of randomized format where we don't have to figure out a specific schedule for games, worry about whether certain games coming up back to back is going to be a problem. Can we insert other games like Crisis Core into the stream without messing things up? And so in general, it's been working really well. So it's going to need more time because there are so many games in there. It's going to take quite a long time for every game to kind of show itself and see how it's working. But everything we've seen so far for it, especially in terms of the numbers and stuff, although we haven't seen any kind of major changes in the numbers, I think that's generally to be expected. But in terms of the series performances and their relative performance versus each other, they pretty much align with what me and the mods have observed over the years. So at least that's looking consistent. And therefore the kind of the tier system that we have and the priority that each game has within the semi-randomizer stream is looking pretty accurate to us. So there hasn't really been any changes. Now what this does mean is that the games that we placed in the lowest tier, the ones that we thought would get the lowest viewership overall, are definitely ending up as we expected. Kind of unfortunately, obviously we've given them every chance. Over the years, there's certainly games there that have been there for a long time, and we have had many chances to observe what happens to the numbers when these games come on. And we are pretty conclusive about which games are the least watched and which games are the most watched. Now, of course, as a stream that's been running for so long, our number one goal is to stay alive for as long as we can. And well, for me, there's two ways we do that. The first part, of course, from my perspective, is to do the best that we can with the community. I do my best to pop in there as often as I can. The mods are obviously doing their best. The community in general kind of staying active, staying alive, having a good time in there, and maintaining a nice environment is one of the most important things we can do to make sure the stream lasts for as long as it can. The second thing is, of course, to maintain the viewership as much as we can. The stream has running costs, and it needs to perform to at least a certain level to make sure it stays safe and sustainable for the long run. And in general, it continues to do that. The stream is doing fine. We have no problems. There's no like legitimate big concerns about the stream on that sense. The numbers are strong, but when we have the least popular games on the stream, it definitely does creep more into that stage where we start to get a bit more worried about the viewership. And so what we need to do is to make sure that we focus as much as we can on the games that have like a medium viewership and a high viewership. So what this means is that when we get the lowest tier games, we're going to drop them to a single loop. Because one of the things that does damage the stream the most is when we have a low tier game that also loops twice, and therefore sometimes we have 3 or 4 days worth of streaming in which a less popular game comes on, people switch off, and then it takes a while for the stream to pick back up. Even if a more popular game comes on later, because people have decided not to watch the stream once because of a certain game being on there, it's harder to pull them back in. And so we have made some adjustments. The frequency will be the same. Basically, if the randomizer does what it's expected to do, you'll see them the same amount, but in terms of how long they'll be streamed for once they do appear, the lowest tier games will drop to single loops, and we'll see how things go with that. As I've said from the start, we are generally just observing every update and change that we make and seeing how that affects things. If it's looking like the stream is still doing well or is doing even better in terms of the numbers, and the community is generally how it's always been, then I think we will continue to keep it this way. So that's the general gist for the stream. There will be updates coming, 16's coming, Crisis Core Reunion's coming, and so fans of those 2 games can look forward to them appearing on the 24/7 stream, hopefully relatively soon. 16 is definitely going to be placed like manually to start. Crisis Core Reunion will just kind of see what happens, and hopefully it can make its first appearance before too long. In terms of ongoing content, we have Final Fantasy II continuing. It's definitely a quirky game, an interesting one. I am enjoying definitely some aspects of it, and in general, I wouldn't say my experience has been poor. It's been like decent at best. I wouldn't say like, oh, I've had a really good time with it. It's decent. It's fine. I'm continuing with the game, and it is just interesting for me. It's almost like an academic interest just to see how this game has been designed, how it differs from the games that came after it, and just generally going through that experience has been fascinating for me. So I am overall still enjoying myself, but what I say is like one of the good Final Fantasies that I played, not at this point. But I am looking forward to continuing the game. I would say as of recording this, I'm probably about halfway through. Somewhere between 40 to 60%, depending on how much I've actually done. And I'm looking forward to continuing the rest of it and seeing how it plays out in the second half of the game. So that's going to be Final Fantasy II, and then of course not too soon after Final Fantasy II finishes, we are going to be heading all the way back to where it began and starting with Final Fantasy I. And then once that is done, hopefully soon it will be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then once Rebirth is done, we finally have a clean slate. So I'll revisit all of this stuff once we reach that, but I am looking forward to a new era in which I have literally Final Fantasy 1 to 16 all on the channel, and that frees up more opportunities to try some other games like some JRPG classics that I've been curious about for a long time. And then when it comes to Final Fantasy, there are runs of the games I've been looking forward to doing for a long time, and that's something that I can continue to kind of experiment with and include as time goes on. So for example, modded runs of the game, more challenge runs, that kind of material. The Final Fantasy content will of course continue, because a lot of these Final Fantasy games I love very dearly, and while some of them I've not really got to play that much over the years, because my focus has always been to continue the next one in the series, or the previous one in the series, instead of playing like Final Fantasy VIII, for example, for a second time or a third time, or something like that. So in 2024, we are going to enter the post kind of Final Fantasy 1 to 16 playthrough era of the Danzgate channel, and there's going to be some really cool things that happen as a result. So stay tuned for that, but we have some work to do until then, so Final Fantasy 2 and Final Fantasy 1 still to come. Hope you guys continue to support and enjoy those series when they come out. The Final Fantasy VII Attack Only Challenge has also been going well. Thank you to everybody that's been tuning in for that one. It's been a really good series once again. Of course, as always, whenever you start a new format and it's Final Fantasy X, it's going to be almost impossible for any game to match that. So I was never expecting kind of Final Fantasy X auto battle numbers. But the numbers that we have got for Final Fantasy VII Attack Only, they have been really good, and I've been generally happy with the progress of the series. So we are nearing the end of that one. There's not too many more episodes left to go. That's how I planned it. I didn't want to have like as many episodes as Final Fantasy X. I think that's going to drag out the format too much. So keeping to within about 8 or 9 episodes maximum was always the goal, and I think I should be able to keep the series within that length. So that means that once Final Fantasy VII Attack Only is done, then we have a window for what the next challenge is going to be on the channel. For this one, it's going to be, again, a mixture of what I want to do versus what the general sentiment of the community is. And the best way for me to gauge that at the moment is to do community polls. Those seem to reach quite a lot of people, sometimes up to like 5,000-6,000 people voting at once, which is a pretty significant number relative to the regular viewership of the channel. So do look out for polls in the coming weeks about what to do for this kind of thing, because there's generally 2 roads I could go down. The first one is to continue the attack only idea and keep applying it to other Final Fantasy games and see how it differs across the franchise. And that's something that I'm genuinely interested in pursuing, because I'd love to see how the gameplay and the mechanics make an attack only easier or more difficult in the different games. So which Final Fantasy, for example, is it going to be completely impossible for? That's something I'd love to see. And so the only way to do that is obviously to experiment with more of this series. So that's obviously one way to go about it. And the second is, of course, to just come up with other challenge ideas, because you can never run out of challenge ideas, especially in this day and age with the new way of kind of titling and presenting these challenges that never used to exist back when I got started. There's always a new idea out there. So I'll be doing a poll to ask people what they feel like. If there's like an overwhelming sentiment of, okay, like attack only / auto battle was cool, but we're kind of bored of the format now, don't do another one of those, then I would definitely take that into account with my thinking. And either I'll make the next series something different, like have a little break from attack only and revisit it in the future. Or if people are more like, you know, we're just generally enjoying the challenge material, whatever you want to do, just do it. We're on board. As long as it's a game that I'm interested in, I will continue to watch. Then I will just see how things go. So look out for that stuff. There will, of course, be more challenge material coming very soon after Final Fantasy VII ends. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Now, of course, real talk, I have been seeing that the numbers for the LP material recently for Final Fantasy II and for Dead Space have been pretty underwhelming, unfortunately. Now, it's not something I didn't see coming, because Final Fantasy II is definitely one of the least loved and the least popular Final Fantasies. And so when you go that far back in time, the game needs to be more and more of a classic for it to hold up in terms of views. As much as people are fans of the channel, and there's obviously a core group of people that are willing to watch pretty much no matter what I upload, and I'm always super grateful to that crowd, you have to respect the fact that there is a decent chunk of a series' viewership that's going to come from the popularity of the source material. It can't just be whoever's interested in watching Dan's Great material. It has to be, well, how many people are interested in that game in the first place? And Final Fantasy II and Dead Space are two very good examples of that. So as many subscribers as I have, and the subscribers keep growing all the time, it's not the kind of thing where you can just take liberties and just upload whatever the hell you want, especially things that come from less popular franchises or less popular games in general, because you can see from the numbers there. If you compare something like, you know, Final Fantasy VI LP, it's an older Final Fantasy game, but it's considered a classic. I had way less subscribers when I did Final Fantasy VI, but the numbers are way stronger than Final Fantasy II, and that's to be expected, because Final Fantasy VI is a game that people are just generally more interested in and have more nostalgic feelings for and a reverence for. And while Dead Space is even worse, because it obviously goes outside of my Final Fantasy kind of popularity sphere, and it's not a juggernaut franchise like, say, Resident Evil, which can still pull in the numbers because of the Resident Evil name. Like, there's a huge amount of crossover in terms of people that are just generally Final Fantasy fans and Resident Evil. So let's say, I don't know, 40% of people who play Final Fantasy games have an interest in Resident Evil. They've either played it, or they've watched it, or they generally have an interest in it. For Dead Space, that's probably more like 10%. And you can, again, see that in the numbers. Even though it's me uploading it and you expect a decent chunk of people watching it just because it's me and they enjoy the entertainment that I provide, unfortunately, it only works like that up to a point. And it barely struggles to get over like 500 views per episode, which, especially at this stage when you do this full time, and this year I've kind of moved out, I've got bills to pay, I've got a mortgage, all of that stuff, you have to respect the fact that series like this are basically at this point damaging for the channel, because all the time I spend on Dead Space, I could be spending on something else instead. Now, as always, that doesn't mean that, okay, all of these types of series now stop on the channel and we're only doing Final Fantasy forever. It just means that I need to take these into account and continue to make adjustments as I move forward. So part of why I love to do this whole thing is because it gives me the freedom to make the type of content that I want to make. And so if I ever become someone that only makes the content that I know is going to get views, that's already going to be a bit of a shame for me, and YouTube and this career will lose a bit of its spark. So don't worry, there's still going to be series like Dead Space. I'm going to be playing things that aren't Final Fantasy. That's all going to continue, but it's definitely something that I have to remain aware of, and I have to sort of counteract it in some way to make sure that, okay, some series are going to be more for just the hobby, the fun, just doing something because I want to do it, and some series are going to be, well, fun and something I'm interested in doing, but something that I obviously more consciously know is going to grab an audience and continue to keep the channel moving in the right direction. So with all of that, you would say, well, you need to lean more into the challenge material. The challenge material is far and away the most watched stuff most recently. It's getting like 10 times, 20 times more views than the LP material. Why don't you just do challenges now? Again, I don't want to just completely spam something because it got popular. That's what YouTube always wants you to do. It's like you find a format, this is popular, YouTube is just like, just do this again forever until the wheels fall off. And, well, no pun intended, but that's not how I roll. Of course, I love challenges. I've said it 1,000 times. That's the background I come from. That's why this channel exists. So there's no worries in terms of me continuing the challenge material, but I don't want to just sort of do challenges all the time. And the thing about the format of uploading, like attack only, once every 2 weeks, that kind of thing, it means that a series will take a few months to upload. And during that time, I'm not really doing any challenges. I'm not recording anything for it. So when it comes time to do a new series, I feel very fresh and excited to do a new challenge. So it's not me basically recording challenges every week and making it a regular part of my recording schedule. And so again, that's the kind of thing that protects me from burnout and getting bored of a piece of content, and is sort of just turning into a cash cow that I just upload as much as I can to make as much revenue as I can. But that said, it doesn't mean I can't crank things up a little bit. So again, it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can have more challenge material without it basically completely dominating the channel and this becoming like a non-LP challenge only channel. We can find middle ground. And so that's something that I will be generally looking into. I can potentially try to upload 2 different challenges and basically have them running on different weeks. So they'll both be once every 2 weeks, but we'll have 2 of them at the same time, so that every Friday you'll have some kind of challenge material to be able to watch. Now, does that mean that there might be less sort of non-Final Fantasy LP material and I have to be a bit more careful with my uploads for that? Yes, but that's the kind of adjustment I think I can make to kind of appease my own need to kind of do what I want to do, while also continuing to feed the channel and the audience with material that I know they gravitate to more. So that's the kind of things I'll be looking into in the future and see how that affects my ability to do all of the other stuff that I do on the channel. So I will be looking into it, but there is a chance you'll be seeing some more challenge material. Nothing too crazy, but something that allows me to basically at least have one thing per week that is challenge related. I think that should definitely be doable. And since it's only going to require like one more playthrough of a Final Fantasy game over the course of a few months, it's really not that big a deal. So I should be able to get it done, and just stay tuned to see what I come up with over the next few months. One thing that I do want to announce is actually a one-off little challenge that I did more recently. It's just a single video, it's about 2 hours long, and it's something that I have been asked about quite frequently over the last 10 years maybe, I would say. And that is to do with Final Fantasy X Penance, and more specifically the Penance Extreme Challenge. People that know their Penance / challenge material and stuff, one of the more interesting things that you can do in Final Fantasy X in terms of quite a natural challenge is trying to defeat Penance without ever attacking its arms. And it's something that I'd never done and I'd never tried. We had quite an epic and difficult battle against Penance in the Final Fantasy X-P Birdman mod, which I loved. But this challenge basically being available to do in the vanilla version of the game, not requiring any mods, not requiring anything crazy to do, is just you pretend that the arms are locked out. And it makes it almost like kind of what Penance should have been in some ways. And so I've always been interested in the challenge, but I've kind of put off doing it for a long time. And so more recently, I sat down to see if I could get some kind of Penance battle done without attacking the arms. So that's something that I will be uploading. I'll probably do a premiere episode because it's like 2 hours long. It gives us time to be in the chat and have some fun while it's being aired as well. So definitely look out for that. I will be uploading it soon, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it. It's not the full fat Penance Extreme Challenge, which I kind of later found out means you also have to not break HP limit. I just took it as the Penance Challenge equals you fight Penance without defeating the arms, and that's what I've done for this first one. But it leaves a door open for like the full legit big boy version later on down the line. And I'm sure it will leave you wanting more and wanting me to do the no break HP limit version of the challenge, which I have not yet looked into, but it's something I can definitely try to do in the future as well. So that's some challenge material that's upcoming that I think people will definitely enjoy. But it's just a one-off episode. It's not a mini-series or anything like that. Staying on the Final Fantasy X topic, I have a really wacky video that I'm working on. Currently, it's top secret. Like, very few people know about it because it's so kind of different to what I usually do that I want to keep it low-key for now. It's a project that's ongoing. It's quite experimental. I'm trying to basically, behind the scenes, get it done to enough of a degree that then when I share it, I'm able to deliver on what I'm trying to do. But basically, it's going to be Final Fantasy X having a crossover with another game that most people will not see coming, and that will think this is kind of silly / ridiculous, but then hopefully when you watch it, it will be the kind of thing where you're like, oh, this actually surprised me with how good it turned out, and I was actually quite invested and interested in how this worked. So I'm not going to say too much more for now, but it's the kind of series that I will actually release a teaser for when it's ready, but there's still quite a bit of work to do behind the scenes on it. It's taking quite a lot of time, And it's one of those things that could really bomb. Like I could spend like 100 hours on it and you could have like 3,000 people watching, but it's such a cool idea and it excited me so much that I don't care. It's one of those, again, it falls into the, I really want to make this piece of content and I believe in it. And anyone who does watch it, I think will end up enjoying it. So it's worth my time. So alongside the other material that I know is going to do better, this is one of those where it's very up in the air and experimental. It could be a hit or it could be a massive flop. So we'll just have to see how it goes, but I am excited to be working on this content. Do look out for a teaser in the coming weeks, hopefully, in which you'll get a feel for what it's about. It will probably be even more confusing after you watch the teaser, but that's kind of the point. So look out for that one. I think you'll find it quite interesting. The final thing to talk about in this hangout is to do with live streams. Now, around this time last year, I think it was, I was really starting to consider doing more live streams because quite frankly, they do very well for the channel. There's no denying that. I mean, if I were to say that the lucrative aspect of the streams were not a motivator, I would definitely be lying. They're definitely great for the channel in that sense too. But obviously, in terms of it creating like a more of a community feel, we already do that in the 24/7. But there's something special about those live streams and the way that people come together and the fun that we have in there. It's something that I've wanted to do more of for quite some time. But in general, I'm a bit more averse to live streaming. That's how it's always been. I prefer to do it more sporadically and make it into more of an event. I don't like to cover new games at all with it. It's something that I'm never interested in doing. But again, are there ways to do this thing where I can do more live streams, do them the way that I like to do them, and basically entertain you guys, create something new for the channel, and just generally have it be a piece of more regular content that people can expect to see as well. And for this, my options were pretty obvious. Basically, the main key for me is not to commit to doing it too often, because then it's going to become like a, you know, I have to perform for people, I have to put on a show, and I have to do this like 2 nights a week, this time. It has to be rigid so people know when to expect it. And if I can't deliver on that, then people are going to be wondering where I was, and I have to be very consistent. Basically, I don't want the streaming aspect to overtake the content creation and the video making aspect. So that was kind of a fundamental thing I didn't want to compromise on. But I wanted to give people something that they can expect to see on the channel and something that's more of an ongoing series. Now, I've done this once before, all the way back in 2016/17, where on Twitch, like experimentally, I did a no-figure playthrough of Final Fantasy X. And it went well. It was one of those where I made no plans for when I was going to stream. I just let people know like soon before it. And we had a good time and it worked out, considering like it was quite a small niche audience of people because I had no presence on Twitch back then. And I still don't, but it was really good and I definitely enjoyed myself. So what I landed on in the end was to try to have basically 2 live streams a month, basically every other week, committed to a particular day and a particular time slot. Now it's something that I want to, like once I announce to people what day it's going to be and what time slot it's going to be, I want to be able to do that consistently. And well, for the past few years of my life, but especially the past 12 months, consistency is not really something that I've had much of in my life. And so unfortunately, even though I did commit to doing something like this basically at the start of this year, it's taken a long time for me to kind of settle enough to have that sort of consistency and potential routine in my life to commit to something like this and to do it properly. And so that kind of time has finally come around. Basically, I moved out from my parents' place at the start of this year. I ended up being able to have my own space full time for the first time since like 2018 or something like that. It had been a while. So once I was able to kind of move out and settle down properly here, then obviously other things started happening. It already took me a long time to sort of settle into a true kind of independent living situation here. And then summer came along, which was not a good time to sort of start anyway, and I was busy with a lot of other stuff. And in the autumn time, my girlfriend moved in with me. It's something that we've been planning for a long time, and we finally made it happen in recent times. And so that's obviously requiring a bit of an adjustment too. But finally, the pieces have started to fall into place where I feel more comfortable to say, okay, I'm going to be able to live stream twice a month. Yes, it's not the biggest commitment in the world, but it's going to be something that I do rarely enough that it's not going to take over the regular material. Live streaming is still something that I think in terms of my own kind of personality and creativity style, it just doesn't work as well with me. I'm not as much of a showman, and kind of doing the whole live stream format just doesn't work as well for me. Over the years you've seen, when I do it, it ends up going quite well, and it's something I like to dabble in, but I just don't want to transition into becoming a streamer. I just want to be a content creator who does stream sometimes as well, but not like 4 times a year. Basically try to commit to doing it more often. So this is, again, that kind of middle ground where hopefully it's going to work well for you guys, and it's going to work well for me as well. So that's what I plan to do. I did promise the Final Fantasy X randomizer, that's what I mentioned last year. and that's what I'll be looking to stream. It will probably be something like 3 to 4 hour streaming sessions, and I will give you guys the exact kind of day and time that I commit to in the coming weeks, and from there on we will be basically having a place to gather every couple of weeks where we can have a true live stream, chat it up, have some fun, and hopefully it will be something that generally boosts the Dance Great community as well and gives us a more kind of real-time way to be together and hang out. So that's something that's going to be coming to the channel. It's been a while, but it's something I can finally sort of bring back into the picture and more readily commit to for the future. So those will be like regular streams. Of course, we'll still have our one-off streams sometimes for like events, anniversaries, any kind of news that's dropping. Sometimes I want to do a hangout as a stream as well. Those are still quite fun. But for this one, I just wanted to make sure I kind of got the information I needed to across without kind of needing to do back and forth with the chat and stuff. So this one's not a live, but we'll definitely do some more live hangouts in the future as well. So I think for now, that's all of the information that I want to convey. Once again, there was a lot to get through. Hopefully it's going to be exciting material for you guys. There's going to be lots of Final Fantasy material to come. The LPs will continue for Final Fantasy, of course. There's going to be more challenge material, potentially at a higher frequency as well. There's going to be live streams coming, and there's still going to be those kind of wacky, weird Dance Great videos that pop up from time to time that go against kind of the normal routine of what you're expecting. So in terms of that, the general kind of fundamental way I do things stays the same, but I try my best to adapt and move along with the times. You don't stay on YouTube for over 15 years unless you at least make some tweaks and adjustments to your style and your content as you move forward. Otherwise, either you're just going to burn out anyway because you keep doing the same stuff over and over again, or eventually it's just going to stagnate and you're going to start going backwards. And YouTube is a slippery slope. Once you start falling backwards, you're going to put more pressure on yourself. You're going to be more likely to force yourself to make certain types of content. You're going to potentially overwork yourself, and you're just going to slowly start to sort of fall out of love with what you're doing, and that could be disasterific, as they say in Final Fantasy X-2. We do not want that to happen. So I'm doing my best to continue to sort of observe the space, see what's happening, see what's working on the channel, see what's working for me, and sort of blend all of that together into some kind of formula that keeps me rolling and keeps me doing my thing on YouTube for as long as I can. So thank you all for watching. I will see you soon for all of this content that I've been talking about. I think the one that's closest, like upcoming, is going to be the Penance No Arms Challenge. I'll probably do some Patreon early access for that for people that are curious, and then we will have a big premiere for people to enjoy that as well. So that's the general gist. Thank you to everyone for the support. I appreciate you continuing to watch and interact with the channel. Everyone that's viewing, that's liking, that's a member on the channel, that's gifting memberships, that's on Patreon, and thanks to all of your support, I can continue to do this to the best of my ability and keep bringing you the content that you know and love on the channel. So thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care.